to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to try and recreate this particular animation using only HTML and CSS. If you end up enjoying the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and check out my socials in the description. To recreate this animation, we're going to need three files. The first being the HTML file, the second being the CSS file, and finally an image. This image is going to be an image of the water that we're seeing flowing in the animation. I made this using Figma, and I'm sure you can make this using any software you like, but one thing to keep in mind is make sure that one side sort of flows onto the other. So if I was to repeat this image right here, this would flow nicely into this section of the wave. It'll make more sense when we use it, but for now keep in mind that you want one end to flow into the other. So try repeating this image again right after and making sure that it flows into it again. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so the HTML is actually very simple. All we need to do is pull up the skeleton code. This can be done by typing in the exclamation mark and hitting enter, and VS Code handles the rest. Now we want to link the CSS file, so this can be done by typing link, and again VS Code pretty much handles the rest, and we're going to link it to the style.css file or whatever name you've given to the CSS file. I'm also just going to name the title to water animation. Once that's done, we only need to create one div, and we're going to give the class a name circle. The shorthand way to do this is to just type .circle and hit enter, and you can see that VS Code has created a div for us with the class set to circle. I'm just going to hit save and open this with live server. So as you can see, the web page is actually empty, but that's because we haven't added anything in yet. So let's use the CSS file to do that. First, we're going to set the margin and padding to 0. The box sizing to border box. Next, we're going to make it so that the body takes up the entire screen, and this can be done by setting the height and width to 100 VH and 100 VW respectively. For those who don't know, VH essentially stands for viewport height and VW stands for viewport width. So when we set it to 100 and 100, we basically mean we want it to take the entire screen. Now I'm actually going to change the background color to something that's a bit more dark, but you can change it to any color you like or leave it white, that's up to you. This can simply be done by changing the background property, and in this case, the color I want to set it to is this. Now that we've changed the background color, we want to make sure that anything we add to the body is added right in the center of the screen. To do that, we're going to change the display mode to flex. Then we're going to make sure that all items are aligned to center, and this can be done by changing the align items property to center. And also we want the content to be justified to the center. Now anything we add in the body tag will be added to the center of the screen. Now if you remember, in the HTML script we added a div and gave it the class circle, and this is what we're going to be using to create that circle for the water animation. So let's work on that. The first thing we want to do is to choose an appropriate height and width for the circle. I'm going to set both of these to 400 pixels. Now in order to actually see the shape, we need to give it a border. So let's quickly do that. I'm going to set the border to being 5 pixels in width, a solid color, and that color being white. And now you can see we have a square on our screen, and it's only a square because we haven't changed the border radius. So let's quickly do that. We can change the border radius to 50%, and this makes it a perfect circle. Now, the next step is to add a background that stays within this circle. And this background is obviously going to be the water image that we created. So let's quickly do that. We can set the background image by setting the background property and then using the URL method and passing in the name of the file, which in this case is water.png. And now you can see that we have the water image as the background of our circle, but it's not the right size. So let's scale it down to the right size. To do this, we can simply use the background size property, and I'm going to set it to 400 pixels by 200 pixels. So what we're seeing here is that the image is being repeated on the y-axis. We actually wanted to repeat on the x-axis. And this is why it was key that when you design the image, one end sort of flows into the other. The idea is that we're going to stack this image multiple times and have it translate on the x-axis. And that will give us the effect of the wave flowing. So to do that, we first need to set it so that the background image only repeats on the x-axis. And to do that, we can type background, repeat, and repeat x. So this ensures that the image only repeats on the x-axis. Now obviously this is a static image because we haven't added an animation in. So let's quickly do that. We're going to create an animation called flow, and at 0%, which is at the start, we want the background position, which is the water image, to be at minus 1200 pixels and 200 pixels. And then at 100%, which means at the end of the animation, we want the background position to be at 0 pixels but still 200 pixels on the y-axis. So what you can see is that all we're doing is changing the x position of the image. So it's translating on the x-axis, and since the image is repeating on the x-axis, it'll give us the effect as though the water is flowing within the circle. Now to see this in action, all we need to do is set the animation property of our div circle to have flow, and we're going to set it for a duration of 2 seconds in linear format. Remember, we don't want it to be ease because we want it to have a constant flow, and finally we want this to go on for as long as possible, or in other words, infinite. And there we have it, the animation is complete. Now because we set the display mode to flex and we aligned everything in the center in the body tag, when I maximize this window, the circle still remains in the center. Now you can play around with this and have it so that the water rises up slowly. This can easily be done by modifying the y-axis values in the animation. So if I change the initial position to be 400 pixels, that means it's going to go below the circle, and then the final position to be 200 pixels, that means where it is right now, and I hit save, you can see that the water is now slowly rising. And by changing the dimensions of the background, you can have it so that the water rises all the way to the top of the image, and this could be a cool loading screen or a splash screen for some of your applications. So that's how you can create this really nice water flow animation using only HTML and CSS. I've tried something new this video, so please let me know if you enjoyed it by leaving a like and commenting below. Also consider subscribing to the channel for more such content. You can check out my other videos on the screen, and with that, I'll see you next time.